Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get ready to hop into our next game. It is confirmed Billowy versus KeeN. Just taking a look, and we won't spend too much time talking about these players because they are fairly well known, but in terms of match history, they have played a few times in the past couple of months. And in fact, we do have, I guess, as of what, like 8 days ago? I think that's 8 days ago, 7-8 days ago. They played in the ASL Bacon Infinity Championship Series, and Billowy ended up beating KeeN 3-2 over there. Besides that, Corsair Cup back in January. Don't know how much information we can really glean off of that, but Billowy also took that series 2-0, and they're sitting at 2-2 with the rest of their games happening in like 2015 or 2013. So I would definitely give Billowy a small little edge over KeeN in this.
Okay.
All right, well.
Oh, you don't have a map intro?
Yeah, I don't have a map intro for this one.
Okay, cool.
Joey, if you're cutting up the VODs.
So, yeah, to add on top of that, because there's no map intro. Yeah, Billowy has been looking, I think, on the up and up, as has Protoss, you know, bringing it up again. Kind of some Terrans are having trouble with it. So I would actually give this to him, like, 2-1. I was going to throw that out there.
All right, well, we'll find out how favored it is as we hop into the game and introduce the players. Spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, on top of the blue Protoss player, it's Billowy.
In the bottom right, as the yellow Terran, he is KeeN.
So, Apotheosis.
Yeah.
Apotheosis. How do you say the map name?
Apotheosis.
Apotheosis.
Yeah, and then people, so you know, there's always that one guy that wants you to pronounce everything correctly. He's always correcting like your European pronunciations and your map pronunciations. So it's like, they're like very like passive aggressively, but like
it's not TLO, it's
capitalized. Great. So they'll always put like the O capitalized in apotheosis, and I'll be like, nope, apotheosis. Fuck you. Because that's how we roll. Just like what was it? Oh my god, I forgot the map that we intentionally. Van Nuys Research Station. Yeah, we always like basically like we purposefully missaid that because it sounds cooler. Van Nuys, whatever.
Van Nuys.
That was a map.
See that? Van Nuys sounds like a race or something in Mass Effect that you would see.
Or like the Draenei in World of Warcraft.
Or that, yes.
Yeah, a little bit. But that was a good map. There's so many maps that were actually pretty decent for their map pool and, you know, very consistently played, almost like an overgrowth. But we probably will never see again because it wasn't that much of a hallmark map, you know? Van Nuys Research Station was probably marred a little bit too by Storm Hosts. Well.
You know, to be fair though, so was King Sejong Station, but it still made it back.
Yeah, I guess that's true, but King Sejong existed even before Storm was really popular, where I feel like Van Nuys was kind of like the later.
Oh my god, we have a legend, Crank, in the chat with the 25-month resub. Thank you so much. The wonderful, wonderful Crank.
Yeah, he did a lot, I guess, recently. He was helping with Total Biscuit's show match, or not show match, King of the Hill, where he actually cast and helped organize, I think. There's Olivia, also a big organizer for that too. And, you know, doing a streaming thing and all that, so.
Yeah.
Yay, Crank!
Go Crank!
Anyway.
So I have
he even helped with the Olimoleague too.
Oh yeah.
What's up?
So whenever I feel like I see this so often in pro games, where I'm never sure if it's just over microing, but I feel like I always see these players, they'll be chasing the Reaper with their Adept, they'll shade the Reaper or the Adept straight onto the Reaper, they'll get exactly one shot off, and then I see them doing this startup for their next attack, and then they just stop, because it seems like the Reaper gets out of range. But I'm pretty sure in StarCraft, if you start up an attack animation, you're guaranteed to finish it. Right? No matter if you run out of range.
I don't know, because that happens so commonly, even like, you know, my own games, where I'll be like, thank God for the Adept slow attack! I'll see it wind up, think I'm gonna die, and then get out, and I don't think it's, you know, players around my skill level over microing.
Yeah.
Anyway. I think usually the Adept is literally so slow that there is a point where the animation actually attacks, but there's also a point where it's still just animation. I forget what that point is called, but I think the Adept one is just super long.
Yeah, that's actually quite possible then. Well, regardless, we might be seeing more Adepts, patent pending, but Twilight Council is coming out pretty soon, so we may be seeing Resonating Glaives. There's a lot of pretty scary Adept all-ins that you can still do as a PvT or a Protoss player in this matchup, but usually they require Chronobus Net, a Warp Prism, warping in additional Adepts, which we're seeing so far.
Yes. Yeah. Feeling a lot of Terrans, a lot of headaches. KeeN's about ready to go with his drop at the very least. He wants Widowmine drop.
Yeah. I know, I'm actually looking at it. I think the third Gas Geyser and also the fourth Gas Geyser are now being taken. I'm guessing it's not probably going to be an Adept all-in or anything, but it is going to be Adept Harassment with Blink coming out behind it, not Resonating Glaives.
So I guess either one is fine, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, you're gonna go into this big, well upgraded composition of gateway units. As you know, Legacy of the Void is very different than Heart of the Swarm Protoss. But I guess I'm a little surprised too, just because Blink, whereas on Frozen Temple, I feel has a lot of control over the map. Apotheosis is so big that even with Blink being able to be like more mobile and whatnot, is still very hard to pressure. But you know, it might not even be a pressure thing. He has the Warp Prism to pressure, so why does he need Blink Stalkers to do that? This is probably just because he wants to be able to follow a medevac around.
Yeah, I think it's the medevac, but also just Liberators. Liberators can quite literally just end games if you don't have a good way to deal with them. But Widowmines do burrow, and both of them get the burrow off. That's unfortunate for Billowy, who does not have an observer. Oh no, has 3 observers out, but they're all in the wrong place.
This sounds very familiar. I feel like Billowy's done this before. Where's the observers? Do they have any? Or he's like 5, but they're everywhere else. Okay, so he's got to bring one back or just make another one. Okay, I guess he can make him another one.
Oh god. Even bring the Warp Prism all the way back. He brought the Warp Prism like halfway back across the map and then sending it back to try and put the pressure on again. But it's going to run into the Liberator now, so he at least sees the Liberator.
Yeah, they see each other. But the Liberator's never going to take out a Warp Prism. Not now. It's been such a single damage reduce rate is so big. So, hoping to catch a probe transfer is kind of sneaky from KeeN, but it is going to be only 1 probe at a time, so
yeah,
really not a big deal. The Liberator also is going to, as you said, it's already scouted, so it shouldn't be able to do that much damage. And the Warp Prism, it'll always, I think, have more capability as KeeN moves out with his actual army. But it looks like he's gonna go ahead and keep at least a portion of his army back at home, which is significant. You know, tit for tat, 3-4 Adepts for 8 Marines, both out of the main engagement.
Absolutely. It can
be tricky.
Well, Marine comes in, scouts out that the Warp Prism is still there, so he is, as you were saying, still going to be wary and probably leaving a couple of units back at home. But third expansion of the gold is being established for KeeN, which is going to give him that extra income.
Look at the super quick 4th base at the regular one. What?
Yeah.
That is probably the quickest 4th base I've seen versus in a TVP that wasn't like, I don't know, Lily KeeN playing mech, right? That's super, super quick and very dangerous too, because he knows the Warp Prism is out and about. I mean, I think the one thing is that why would the Protoss ever check the 4th base? So maybe it's like a hidden quote-unquote one, but Billowy is going to maybe pass by it as his Warp Prism runs around here.
Yeah, Liberator also gets Blunk under and gets taken out, and that is one of the big advantages of Blink. But as you're saying, yeah, the Adepts come in, they scout out that super fast 4th expansion, and he has seen the gold expansion with the Observer as well, so this may actually trigger a big attack pretty soon when Resonating Glaives and +1 weapons finishes up.
It's really weird for the Protoss, I feel, to see this. You know, like there's a certain pacing to TVP that really hasn't changed in, since Legacy of the Void, where the Protoss gets, a faster 3rd base than ever before. Fine, that happens. And a lot of times Terrans are getting a later 3rd base than that. Oof. Oh, it goes down. But then, they also get a faster 4th base too. Like, they're the ones that are expanding usually more consistently than the Terrans. So to have it on the flip here, it's got to be a little confusing for Billowy, because he also now has to think, oh, so the push isn't as severe as it should be, right? Like, I don't have to worry as much about being outmaneuvered and out macroed here, because he still doesn't have his production set up. I'd be kind of freaked out anyways. But he's getting a 4th base now. Not at the gold, the regular one.
I think going for the Colossus is also pretty interesting, and I wonder if that's just because he knows if you're going for a 4th expansion, you're you're gonna be delaying your production a little bit longer. So maybe I can get up a large number Colossus and kind of catch you before you can get up a big Viking count or something along those lines, especially if you're busy making Liberators. But well, big attack comes across the map for KeeN.
Yeah, it's actually a very scary attack, but he will have to go through chokes if he goes through this direction. I think if he attacks the 4th base, that should be a good enough concave, but it has to come back because of an Adept nearby. A little unfortunate for KeeN. Oh, okay, he's kind of like meandering in the middle of the map, so maybe not. Just gets away from the gold base. But that's giving Billowy time to get to those Colossus.
Yeah, it's also giving Billowy time to get into position to defend the 4th expansion. And with a couple of sentries and some good force shields, I don't really think there's going to be anything that... Force shield?
Okay, I think just cancel it,
no,
yeah.
Okay. Well.
I mean, you gotta keep in mind that for like the last 2 minutes, Billowy's like, okay, I have some time. But the 4th base has kicked in for KeeN at this point. His production did finish up. Yeah, in the last minute, he's probably like really like been quite good on that production front. But
yeah.
Billowy's trying to catch up. He's got the 4th base coming back down immediately after this. But KeeN, like, the time at which he is powering up, having the quicker 4th base as opposed to a quick 3rd base that we sometimes see in this matchup, is really throwing off like my pacing even just watching the game. He also went for triple engineering bay, which might have been a mistake. But more importantly, he almost went for double armory. And I thought he was doing something super sick, like he knew Billowy was going to go for Colossus, so he's going to have like double upgraded Vikings by the time Billowy had like 4 Colossus, and that would have been something super cool, but kind of let down. Like apparently everything was just a mistake. He didn't mean to get a 3rd engineering bay, he didn't mean to get another armory. You're supposed to go for Liberators. Oh well.
Well, KeeN's still poking and pushing around. May actually be able to get over here to the 3rd expansion. There's 2 photon cannons that will buy a tad bit of time, but I don't know if the army's going to be able to get there in time to really defend everything. No, looks like he doesn't want... I was thinking he might send a couple of units behind the mineral line, but here we go. The Marauders come in, trying to focus fire down the 4th expansion during all of this, and at the same time, there was some harassment going on with the Adepts on the other side of the map, but 4th expansion goes down, and that's the more meaningful harassment here.
There's a lot of Marauders. They're definitely good at focus firing down buildings, and some of them get away. So KeeN, he will have to retreat. Once again, I think there was some harassment on his gold base, but he really hasn't been using that super consistently, and he is actually losing out in the income war if you look at the graphs. Pretty harsh, too, which is very surprising, but I guess it should swing back, maybe, as he denied that 4th base, and it is starting to a little bit. But upgrades are pretty on par with each other. Their technology, like Storm versus Ghost, Vikings versus Colossus, on par with each other as well. And it's gonna get to this late game where, yeah, mass Tempests might even become a thing as Billowy starts his Stargate. Yeah.
I mean, even getting out the Stargate for the Oracles, I think is pretty nice, just because you want to be able to keep an eye out on your opponent. But yeah, transitioning eventually into the Tempest ends up being one of those things where it especially is good for dealing with the Liberators. And the Liberators start getting into high numbers, and they're starting to get to that point with 5 out. It can be a bit concerning, but I think the fact that he has Colossus in the army, even if he's not making more right now, it forces KeeN to continue to make more Vikings instead of Liberators, which is really, really nice for him.
Oh, okay. Those EMPs are pretty good on the Adepts.
And the Colossus are getting focus fire down right now. One of them has already fallen. The other ones are actually getting pretty low in health. The Colossus are doing some pretty good damage, but this army is getting absolutely obliterated right now.
Wow, I can't believe that ended so quickly. KeeN just like rushing in here, just powering through everything. The EMPs and the Adepts certainly help, and Billowy's just gonna tap out. But damn, that was a good fight.
KeeN takes game number 1 in the round of 8. Well done. That was
well done.
That was, I think that's a really good point. Like, it was one of those games I thought was gonna continue to go on. I thought they were gonna kind of be trading back and forth a bit more, but as you said, the EMP and also just the positioning on that, I think all the stalkers are on the low ground and not really in position to like kill off the Vikings, the Liberators, not really like poke back at a ghost that gets too far forward, and we just saw kind of game end much faster than I thought it would.
Yeah. And the pace of the game felt really weird. Usually we've been seeing a lot, and specifically from Billowy, I think, as he's one of the more consistent Protosses we get to see. This time where in a typical TVP, you know, 2 base, then a slower 3rd base, then a 4th base is like way off of the Terran's mind for quite some time. They try and pressure, they don't get the damage done, and then suddenly the Protoss gets like this big army with Colossus, and 4 Vikings is never enough to really deal with that. That seems to happen like every single time we watch Billowy, and that's why he's like been winning more recently. But instead it was like the flip. Right? Like, he wasn't the one that suddenly had this huge army. It was suddenly KeeN with this huge army.
Well, interested to see what's going to happen on the next map, New Gettysburg, but I do want to note that in the quarterfinals, it was Beyond versus Forte, but Forte ended up taking the series 2-0 versus Beyond. That's a pretty big upset.
I think so, especially because it's a 2-0. I think it's 2-1. Like I said, Beyond has had wonky TVT, especially with his engagements in the past, but I really thought he had fixed it. This isn't the first time he lost to a TVT. He lost the TVT finals a couple of weeks ago, I believe, to Alive, I want to say, which is why it's like, oh, it's going to be an interesting semifinal, but instead he just lost the Forte.
Okay, well, the next map is going to be Gettysburg, and as you were saying, Forte is going to be facing off versus Alive and yet another TVT, so if his TVT is good enough to beat Beyond, then that's probably a good place to be.
Alive is, I think, a more consistent TVTer than Beyond, though, even though Beyond's been improving, so that will be a very interesting semifinal.
Alright, well, as you guys can hear the music, we are hopping into it. Game number 2. As we spawn down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, top of the yellow Terran player. Give it up for KeeN. Sitting up 1-0.
In the bottom right, as the red Protoss, he's Billowy.
And just yet another reminder, of course, guys, if you do want to support the Olimoleague, if you're having fun, if you're enjoying it, if you want the replays, if you want to check out all kinds of other awesome stuff, go check out patreon.com/Olimoleague, and you'll be able to pledge your support with whatever amount that you're willing to. And of course, every dollar helps, even $1 or $2 per week or per tournament. It all adds up with enough people. And that's one of the cool things about the Olimoleague that's always impressed me the most. It's not just, here's this one big person that is, you know, the majority contributor, and like if they back out, then the Olimoleague's gonna die or something like that. It's always been one of the things that has a ton of small contributions that make up the whole piece of the pie.
Yeah, I mean, I even contribute, I think, $1 per week.
Yeah, it helps.
Getting my name up there. Hells yeah. But yeah, and there's some cool rewards too if you want to check it out.
Adding to your own payment.
Yeah. So yeah, right? Whatever. Anyway, the that build last game, that game, I don't think can happen again. Like, Apotheosis is actually becoming that map, you know, that map that can last forever as you get split positions, split map positions and stuff like that. New Gettysburg has the potential as well, and we're seeing a lot of 3rd, 4th base games on New Gettysburg, but it's just like, Billowy's got to be kind of scratching his head and maybe a little bit frustrated with that last game, thinking like, oh, if I had only done a bit more pressure, I think I really could have like punished him for what he did. It's like when a Protoss gets a fast 3rd base, the Terran is like really angry. I know I am. I see like a fast 3rd base from a Protoss, and I'm like, you son of a bitch. How'd you know I couldn't do anything about this?
Yeah, I wonder if it was because of that gold expansion also, because you have those extra minerals, and maybe he knew that, yeah, he'd be investing the extra minerals into the 4th really quickly, but he'd be able to make up for that much quicker than on any other map where the gold expansion, it just pays off so quickly.
Yeah, that's a good point. That was a really quick gold expansion. While it was denied twice, it's still like, it was up for a very long time, so it, you know, was getting its benefit. But Billowy can still bring it back. I think it should be a different game here. I don't know if it'll be a different build from Billowy, because one thing he could have done better was definitely in that harassments. You know, he could have invested into a second warp prism, or really, you know, more heavily invested into the attack, because he really did not have to defend his bases for the first 9 minutes of that game. It was at the 10-minute mark when suddenly KeeN had this like super huge army that was attacking. So he probably could have gotten away with a bit more offensively, but like hindsight 2020 and all that. And well, the game's only just started. It's gonna be a Woodamine drop to start things off from KeeN.
Yeah, first Woodamine's already popping up, and the starport is being made. But I think, as you were saying, yeah, there was sort of that, especially I would say the investment to the War Prism harassment that didn't really accomplish too much. The Adepts later on, as you mentioned, did some damage at the gold expansion and such, but I do wonder also if Billowy had more than just 2 gateways. He could have gone for like big Adept Warpins and really put on the pressure, or if he had gone for Resonating Glaives or something early on instead of just Blink. But I guess if he had gone for Resonating Glaives, he also probably would have taken a lot more damage to the Liberators.
Maybe. The Liberator, there's only one of them, wasn't there?
There was only one of them, and it didn't really do any damage, but I think that was partially because of Blink being researched, though.
I was gonna go for Blink first again. It is one of those. It's the best control and defense you can get really early game. So
yeah, but you really do wanna. It's sort of that thing where if you see that your opponent is not being hyper aggressive with Liberators or Woodamines or anything else, you want to be putting pressure on the other side of the map with that Blink. But that was something that Billowy really wasn't able to do. Yeah,
that's definitely a good point. It's one of those things where, like, I brought up Frozen Temple. If it was Frozen Temple and KeeN tried that build, I think the Stalkers are roaming around and denying it easily, even. It's like way too greedy for someone who's pressuring even the tiniest bit. But while a third CC is on the way, we'll have to wait and see like another minute if he's going to go for the fast fourth again. This might be the way that he wants to play because, again, brought it up after the last game that I don't want to call it a timing because it's not because they have +2 or because they have 4 Colossus, but that time in which the third base has really paid off for the Protoss and they do have a large gateway of them with Colossus, seems to be the time that the Terrans are really just getting wrecked. Like, they just don't have an answer to it because, the Viking hasn't started yet and the Vikings are kind of useless and whatever. And that might be what KeeN's trying to counter by being almost like a turtle Terran. Man. Almost.
Oh, the Widowmine's gonna go down with both of them.
That was
pretty well done. Nice observer placement from Billowy, but that definitely puts Billowy in a pretty comfortable spot. Having killed off the Medivac and the 2 Widowmines, you can play a lot, potentially more aggressive if you want to, and actually start poking across the map with your Stalkers.
Yeah, I wish he would. I could see why he wouldn't on New Gettysburg, because you do have to either go through the bridge or way around to the north. And he really is, I think, more depending on his observers for defense than his Stalkers for offensive control. That's the way I want to put it, sure.
Yeah.
But he does move across the bridge. There's a supply depot waiting, so at least we'll be able to take that out. We won't get much more, though, because Bio is going to be ready with Stim.
Yeah, that's the big scary moment where even if you have Blink, Stimmed units will eventually catch up with your Stalkers and start taking some of them out, especially when Concussive Shells finally finishes up, which it won't for a little bit, but still, that's the big scary moment you just don't want to stick around in the Terran base for.
I do want to note that, like, KeeN did go to 3 tech labs pretty quickly here, so that's why all of his upgrades have started already. And that's going to be some pretty heavy Marauder production if he really is focusing on making 3 Marauders at a time. That's going to be a very beefy army soon.
I wonder if that's a good adaptation for the Colossus style that he saw in that last game. And just the Colossus style that's gotten more popular lately. Well, I say more popular, but also less popular, and also more popular. Just back and forth.
Yeah, it goes through waves for sure. Billowy has been a fan of the Colossus consistently, though, so it could be like an anti-Billowy thing. The problem, though, is that Marauders used to be so good, and someone said this, and I can't ever confirm it. It was like a Twitch user, right? So he could be lying for all I know. But he was like, Koreans actually really hated Marauders, and that's why they were slightly nerfed. It was a complaint that foreigners never really seemed to have. But when you think about Maru back in the day... Oh, an engagement? No, he's not going to take it. You think about Maru back in the day, dropping Marauders and getting concaves with Marauders and just stimming through Colossus fire, and you could see that being a little BS. The problem now is that Adepts exist, and instead of like slaughtering Blink Stalker Colossus compositions, you have to get through a wall of Adepts, and that's where Marauders kind of suck. They don't have very good DPS, and I feel that is where That's the trade-off, though, is like you can survive the Colossus shots, but you're not killing the army nearly as quickly.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's similar to a Protoss army. You have, say, for example, Adepts, or the Adepts are not going to necessarily do a lot of damage to the Marauders themselves, but they tank the damage for their other damage-dealing units, like the Colossus, or even the Stalkers that do that plus armor damage in the back. And I think it sort of has to be a similar thing for KeeN and a lot of Terran players, where they use those Marauders to tank a lot of the shots from the Colossus in the front, and the Marines are trying to get the damage done in the back, or the Widow Mines are trying to get some damage done.
Yeah. Pretty good concave, but like I said, those Adepts, if they're on the front lines, unfortunately the Stalker's in another position.
Yeah.
Provide that wall. Gotta be careful of the Widow Mines, though. Widow Mines? Wine Mines? Widow Mines. Fourth base location. This isn't the first time we've seen people take that fourth, but it's always interesting. Like, you really want to take that fourth?
This concerns me, especially with how normal it is for Protoss, like late game, obviously much later than we are right now, but it is normal for Protoss late game to get up Tempest and stuff, and I feel like this is a really vulnerable position where Protoss can stick a Tempest and harass a lot of the mineral line without really being in a bad position with their Tempest for a big army engagement. Most of the medevac and like Marines that were in the center of the map also get taken out. There's only 2 medevacs out right now, are there? 4 now. I guess 3rd and 4th are. Oh, they're doing a drop over the top right.
Okay. 4 medevacs is just like Heart of the Swarm. An okay stopping point, but not like a great one.
But
yeah, okay, so he's gonna start producing more.
I would argue, like, yeah, the problem with just having 4 medevacs right now and why he does need to reproduce them is the fact that he's trying to make Vikings, or he probably needs to start making Vikings, and he's trying to make Liberators, and he's trying to make medevacs. It's like, compared to Heart of the Swarm, you have that extra unit of Liberators that you want to start making from that starport.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And this is more what I've been seeing, at least from the Protosses, is this time where their army does look better than KeeN. KeeN doesn't have that super great anti-air or the overwhelming bio numbers on the ground. Now, it's still a very scary ability to do this because he is going to potentially run into a concave. He's in the middle of New Gettysburg. There's not a lot of chokes here for him to abuse. But he's trying to control top of the planetary.
Oh, he's going to be doing a pretty nice job over here. Doesn't quite get the planetary, but he still has a good number of storms available. I think, what's that, almost 5-6 storms available. Blink forward kills off a Liberator, and I feel like Billowy is doing a pretty good job of handling this engagement. And the Liberator's on siege. This might be his time.
Another key difference is no ghosts. There's some pretty sick EMPs on the Adepts last game. And of course, now they'd be on those storms, but they're not here yet.
Oh, Force Field goes down. There's the storm on the mules, just trying to delay any of that repair, and the 4th is going to end up falling.
Huh. I mean, KeeN could have tried to go from the back there, but those force fields really were quite... That's another reason I would take that 4th base, in my opinion. Oh well.
Well, 5th expansion is going up for Billowy. He is feeling super confident and super comfortable, even getting up a fleet beacon now, as we are going to be seeing also +1 air weapons. Tries to poke in over here to the 3rd expansion and finds an opportunity where the Liberators aren't quite covering the entire area around that ramp. Oh my god, he's using one storm. He's using multiple storms to try and kill off one Liberator.
Yeah, it's not gonna. It's not very good.
He's using all of his storms.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, as long as he has storms to cover his retreat, okay, it's fine, but he's dangerously close to losing all of them. Upgrades are about to finish. That could certainly be cool for Billowy. 3-3 versus just 2-2-1. KeeN does have a very big drop going down, but DT defense, oh, brutal. Oh, so brutal for KeeN.
Well, it does get the scan out. He can kill off the DTs, but the problem is he has to do so much damage, and these DTs are doing so much damage right now.
Yeah. KeeN didn't get his +3 attack. And that's usually the one you want to prioritize.
Yeah, I mean, he lost his 4th, so I can understand that he doesn't really have the resources. But yeah, you're right. He didn't really go for it. I wonder if that's one of those times that you just hit, like, okay, click both engineering bays with a hotkey for them, start up both of them, and you don't really realize you don't have the resources for one of them.
Yeah, no, probably exactly what happens. But it does mean that he's going to be just straight up behind in upgrades for a very long time because he still has not started it. His 4th base had finished, and he's going to try and take the same 4th base. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. You know, at this point, he could also take an island base. I think that'd be a lot cooler because he does have air. It's not like a War Prism would destroy his island base. He can make it into a planetary, too.
Yeah, well, a lot of the bios on the south side trying to get some damage done. He split up his army between the north and the south side. The north side does not have any medevacs with it, so they got to be a bit more cautious about the stimming. But the south side also only has the 2 medevacs. There are 6 out on the map, but oh god, these adepts are doing so much damage to the 3rd expansion, on top of the having lost that 4th so many times.
Billy is really taking quite good control of this game, but it's important to note that while the momentum, I think, is in his favor, KeeN still has an army. And in fact, he's getting a better army because his SCVs are dying. So at any point, Billowy could run into Liberators for 2 seconds too long and lose like 40 supply. Like, I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, I think the big fear for me right now is that KeeN has a really large army, but Billowy is starting to get up the money composition, the exact composition that every Protoss player hopes and dreams about getting to, where you have Storm, you have Colossus, and you have Tempest in the mix, and it's going to be so hard for KeeN to make sure that he needs to make sure he has to take a good engagement over here, and Storms are starting to come down, Observer's starting to get picked off over here. Billowy is on the retreat because he's just getting concave so hard, but these retreating Storms are doing so much damage.
Yeah, that was brutal. Okay, here, question mark everywhere. Why no Ghost still? Okay, he realizes. He's like, I got a Ghost for
like, until now.
Maybe. I don't know. He's been banking a little bit. Because he was almost maxed out. So I don't even know. I think he just kind of forgot. It's been 5 minutes, I want to say, since he got a Ghost Academy. He got it pretty early.
Yeah, maybe.
And that could have been a death push if he got any good EMPs whatsoever. That could have been Billowy actually dying there, but instead it was very good for Billowy. He took out a good chunk of supply for KeeN.
Rocks are going to get knocked down, which would open up another pathway for Billowy to move down into that 4th expansion. And KeeN is once again caught in this really awkward position where every single time he sieges up north of his 4th expansion, Billowy just moves a little bit further to the west, comes down, and the Liberators are all siege up in the wrong position. But I like this position a lot better. KeeN is going to be able to siege up, but guess what? Now there are Tempests in the mix. They're going to be able to eventually take out not only the Ghosts, but the Liberators.
That's a good point. They can have the Ghost too. I was gonna say the EMPs could be really good. The Vikings have that range. It's still one good thing about the Vikings. They can kind of maneuver around here. Planetary's not gonna go down. Storms are coming down on the Vikings, and that's what I was really afraid of. Oh my god.
Oh god, every Viking goes down. That one last game. Oh yeah, with all the storms coming down. Billowy ties up the series 1-1.
Brutal. But that was a pretty long game, so before we get into the ace match, I'm gonna go to a quick 2-minute break.
Alright, we'll see you guys in a little bit.